Episode of the podcast. It's great to be back with you, whether you've been here for quite a while or whether you are new. Chances are you're here. You found me either via the 2026 horoscope videos I recently uploaded, or if you caught this channel via the Markle video I posted recently, having a look at her birth chart. Now, some of those comments in that video requested, yeah, let's take a look at Harry. So that's what we're going to do today. And what I want to show with you is just how powerful my favorite timing techniques of secondary progressions and secondary progressed lunar phases are when it comes to really showing the timing and the life cycles in someone's life. And so that's what I want you to do today with the Ginger Prince. And so let's get into it. So if you've not seen Harry's chart before, let's just have a quick look at it. He has good birth data, which is always handy. I know Megan's is a little bit, it's under scrutiny. That being said, we don't have anything that contradicts what she says to be true. Everything else is a rumor at this point in time. So, for example, if Megan was to book in a reading with me or with you, you would just use the chart of which she provides you. So, until you know otherwise, we just work with what we've got. And we can hold our thoughts and our opinions and our astrological insights and watch and wait. Anyway, Harry is believed to be very solid data. So let's check it out. We've got Capricorn rising. So he's actually got the same configuration as his grandmother, the Queen, or the former Queen, being Capricorn rising, with the ruler of that ascendant being Saturn in Capricorn, configured very closely to the midheaven in the 11th house. Lizzie had the same thing. So that's an interesting family heirloom that we have there. So, how we would describe that is that for Harry, his identity, who he is very closely configured to his career, his public reputation, the work that he's doing in the world. So, he is the career in a way. He is the person, he is the man in essence. So, this isn't a chart configuration that's, oh, I'll just go get a job. It's possible, but that's not what the astrology suggests. So we've got that midheaven slash ascendant ruler is there. So Saturn and the midheaven is in Scorpio. And Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which is at 16 Sag, fairly closely configured to Uranus in the 12th house. There's quite a few ways that that plays out for Prince Harry, and we'll touch on some of those as we move through this video. We've also got Jupiter in the first house, which is always a bonus to have a benefic, particularly Jupiter in the first house. It has a very protective quality, bit of a larger than life quality. And sometimes it can feel like you're walking through life surrounded in a bubble of protection and goodness. And sometimes there can be a little bit of oblivion there too, just the bigness of Jupiter. We've also got another angular benefic for Harry, which is actually really nice astrology. This one is Venus in Libra. So while the 10th house isn't technically Harry's career, looking at whole signs, Venus still has influence with 10th house matters. So public reputation, popularity, visibility, all of that sort of thing. Then we've got the sun, which is in Virgo. The sun finds its joy in the ninth house. It has no extra special qualities being in Virgo, so it's kind of neutral there. Virgo, Mercury in Virgo is super, super strong, actually. It's in its sign of exaltation and rulership. And at 5 degrees, it has a special level of dignity known as terms, Egyptian terms or bounds. So I won't go into that today for the length of the video. If you do want to explore these really potent essential dignities that often get overlooked, I've got a webinar about that on my website. I've also got a webinar about secondary progressions if you want to get into that and the lunar phases, which will be very solid building blocks to get you started with these techniques if you're not too familiar or lacking in confidence with them. We've also got the moon in Taurus, exalted. So he's got some pretty solid planets there. The moon actually rules the house of marriage for him and is exalted with the North Node. It's configured with the IC and it's all in the fifth house. So, and that moon, it's a touch wide, but it's within the vicinity of a fixed star called Algol. And that too is another, it tends to be a royal signature, having Algol configured with the charts. Also, I'm pretty sure I've got a webinar on fixed stars on the website as well. So there's plenty there if you want a deeper dive as a result of this video. So I think I've got cat hair on my face, hence keep touching it. Let us look at some secondary progressions for Harry. So if you're not too familiar with secondary progressions, in short, it takes the idea of a day for a year. So that day being the sun moves a degree per year, and then that gets stretched out for a day. It's very biblical, 40 days, 40 nights. We should all know that story. But yeah, this is, what we use in astrology as well. And so the idea is that every planet is different to solar arc directions, which is a whole different thing. The idea here is that you progress every planet on average daily speed for a year. So say, for example, if one planet moves, let's say, for example, the moon, the moon will move up to 12 degrees per day, and then it will move over 12 degrees per year or a degree per month. So it's a bit mathematical, and this isn't the place to get into the nuts and bolts of the maths. And if you're scared of the maths, it's easy. The programs do it for you. You can get a really good look at at the secondary progressions inside an ephemeris as well. I'm a big proponent of owning one. All right, so if you've not really seen a tri-wheel before, we've got the natal chart in the center, the secondary progressions around in the middle, and then just some of the transits on the outside, and they kind of act as trigger points. If you're wondering, how do you make all this work? How do you put this all together? This isn't my idea. This has been around for a long time. We could sort of see the natal chart as the gun. The secondary progressions are the bullet inside the chamber of the gun, and then the transits pull the trigger. So you've got to have that kind of, it helps to have a really solid trifecta, and that can really show some really significant timing in someone's life. Essentially, secondary progressions are going to demonstrate how the individual is unfolding as per the promise of their natal chart. Like a flower that blossoms when it's ready in its own timing, we all blossom and flower according to the timing of our own life. And these secondary progressions show us how and when. So for Hazza, the Ginger Prince, we have the ruler of his midheaven, which is Mars. It's at 16 Sag. And by the time he's about 20? This Mars has progressed through the 12th house, and in September of 2004, he joined the British military. And so his secondary progressed Mars, the ruler of his midheaven, the sign that, the ruler of the sign that rules his ascendant, has moved into the first house. In short, you could describe this as his evolving career has come into his first house. So he's kind of met his life direction, he's met his future path, who he is and what he's here to do have kind of been activated in a really solid or a positive way. That's going to be a key signature for anybody if their career planet comes into the first house. It's kind of, yep, I'm doing the thing, and it's happening. This is even stronger for Harry because not only has Mars come into his first house, Mars has moved into its sign of exaltation. So not only do we have sort of some positive progress with Mars, but Mars is moving into a really good condition. So it was sometime around 2005 by the time, obviously he enlisted at this point in time, roughly a year later, he was in. And Mars does tend to move a little on the slow side in secondary progressions. So the fact that this was pretty much a bang on situation is actually really, really great to see. So we can also see a few other things have happened, in the first little while when he was in the military. We can see that his secondary progressed midheaven has also come um, to meet his natal Uranus. So this is so what happened during this time is that he was the announcement was made out of Kensington Palace or wherever it was made out of that he was going to participate in active service in Iraq. Um, but then, so that it was all going to be on, but then that got rescinded. So this kind of almost shows to me that there's this idea of being on again, off again, that midheaven progressing over Uranus, little unstable, little unsolid. I'm in the army. I don't know exactly what role I'm going to play at that point in time. So I thought that was an interesting situation. So the Iraq, his service in Iraq didn't happen, but he did end up going to Canada and did some kind of joint situation with the Canadian Army or the British Canadian Army, and then that took him to Afghanistan. So he did serve in two active tours of Afghanistan. Now, what we can see here in terms of his secondary progressions around this time is that the sun has come to meet Venus. So the secondary progressed sun, so his evolving identity, his evolving sense of who he is, how he shines his light in the world, all of that sun stuff has come to evolve to conjoin his Venus in the 10th house. This is one progression you can take to the bank with people, whether it's the sun coming to meet Venus or Venus comes to meet the sun. It will depend on which planet comes first in the natal chart. um, you can pretty much take to the bank that this is going to be a really happy time, full of joy, a sense of fulfillment, the road just rising up to meet you, etc., etc. Now, because I know to take this to the bank when I see it in a birth chart, so I'll just uh, backtrack a second. Because it's the sun, you could read this as the year leading up to the degree of Venus, the year of it being conjunct Venus, and then the year off. So, roughly a 3 year period where there's the build up, the year of things being great, and then sort of a slow sort of fade. And because I know that this is such a great thing to be able to discuss with people, or if you've had it experience yourself, you can backtrack and go, hey, yeah, that actually was a great year doesn't necessarily mean that everything works out and is peachy keen forever, but you might have found that was just a really great time. The road was rising to meet you, things were going otherwise really well for you. Now, funnily enough, it was during this period of time. So Harry said from 2005 through to 2015 were the happiest years of his life. So we can see that there's definitely, a joyful, happy progression taking place. In addition, he's also in the full moon phase via the secondary progressed moon phase. So when you're looking at the secondary progressed moon phase, please always, always, always remember that it's the secondary progressed sun to the secondary progressed moon. A lot of people seem to default to the natal sun and the secondary progressed moon. Delete that. Don't do that. It's always secondary progressed to secondary progressed when it's the lunar phase. So he's in the full moon. So he's in the full moon at this point in time. And this is a very stark, it's a very vibrant, it's full light, full opportunity. It is a real big turning point, a pinnacle moment in the life. We enter the full moon phase just once every 27 years. So this is sort of Harry as good as it gets during these years. So the midheaven ruler is, no longer in the 12th. So obviously he's got that capacity and action to do things via secondary progression. And that midheaven is slowly coming up to Mars, but we're a little bit early at this point in time. So, generally speaking, he's saying that these military years were the best of his life and they lasted to approximately 2015. And so, this is where we actually do start to see that midheaven has come to conjoin his natal Mars. And so, one of the reasons why his career ended is that these tours of Afghanistan that he was doing were getting leaked by the press, and that was also putting a bit of danger not only on him, but also, just the whole um, unit or wing or squadron, whatever it was for him that was serving with him. So it just made everything a lot more high risk and a lot more dangerous. And he'd done his 10 years, so good for him. So that was that. So the happiest of his life, and there was some really nice progressions during that decade that exemplified that. So the career is over, and speaking from experience, yes, you heard right. And if you've known anybody who has been in the military, the integration back into civilian life is so, so difficult. Obviously, for Harry, he's not a civilian in the general sense of the word, but whatever life you're returning to is going to be not an easy one. It's not an easy adjustment for anybody. And also, what you'll see around this time as he's leaving the military, that secondary progressed ascendant is at the last degree of Aquarius. So this is sort of his evolving persona with the world, his evolving sense of who he is, maybe his physicality, what he's doing, all of that sort of stuff is really shifting and changing. And you might also, if you're noting aspects, his ascendant is also squaring the nodes via progression. So this is a big turning point for Harry. And within, what have I got here? The progressions of around September 2015, only a short time later, we're talking a matter of months, that he meets his future wife. So that was sometime in the mid of 2016. So via this time, that has changed signs, the secondary progressed ascendant. Now, this is again another pro tip you can take to the bank, giving away all my secrets here today. I see this a lot with somebody who's either got very late placements, for example, the Sun in Sag, or early Capricorn. Obviously, that first sun sign progression change, if you're late Sag, happens very young in life, and we don't have a lot of agency then. But generally speaking, whenever I see somebody who has progressions move through Capricorn, then move through Aquarius. More often than not, it's the sun. Then by the time they get to Pisces, it's been Saturn, 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 and then Pisces. It's a very big energetic difference. And I think Harry really felt this one. He's obviously born into a life of duty. Then he was in the military, which too is a life of duty and service, quits that and meets the woman who will eventually quit everything as far as his own life is concerned. So that's a significant one. So that was when he met Megzi. So let us fast forward a little bit further on. So there's so many things I probably should just do a webinar extra long episode on this. I don't know. I should do something because his progressions are so, so interesting. One thing when he met Megan was that his secondary progressed moon was in Cancer. So it's in its home sign. It will have its own unique quality to it. But the main thing here I want you to think about is that, in a sense, your progressed moon, as it ticks through the signs and ticks through the houses, roughly sort of 2.5 years, depending on the speed of the moon at birth, a year. I mean, 2.5 years per sign. So he's about halfway through Cancer at this stage. And this is showing that he's sort of in the mood or he's ready for relationship, commitment, all of that sort of thing. And maybe not just a girlfriend, potentially a wife. That next chapter, that next phase of his life. Um, Particularly with that exalted moon with configured with the IC, children, uh, maybe hungry for that life. I mean, there's some also rumors about Megan's background that we could sort of slot into the fifth house, but yeah, I'll leave that one up to your imagination. But case in point is that Harry is so the chart suggests that he's ready. He's ready for maybe marriage or some kind of significant relationship. He's also had, just as a another thing to note, over the last couple of years, as he's exiting the military and finding new direction in his life, Pluto has been kind of going back and forth over his ascendant. And obviously, that's not something that happens to everybody all of the time. Doesn't happen to everybody's chart, but this is going to be a significant thing if you've had that yourself, if you've got Capricorn rising, or maybe Sag, even if when Pluto was there, or even if you've got those early degrees of Aquarius now. Um, Another little thing to keep your radar on for is that we've got the secondary progressed Venus is starting to come up to that south node. So meeting Megan would have felt, I could imagine, kind of karmic, fated. Yes, we've been here before, and he's in a whole new phase of life, and oh yeah, this is it. This is the thing, right? I can completely imagine all of that. Neptune is squaring, oh, sorry, I should say trining that midheaven, going over his Saturn, which is his ascendant ruler. He's not seeing the future clearly. Maybe he is, but there's a certain sense of fadedness, of fogginess, a lack of clarity. Wherever Neptune is, there and relationships, I always mark that as a bit of an astrological red flag for people, just in the sense of, you don't know what you don't know when you can't see clearly. It's a great experience, but maybe not so much for the situation of clarity. Now, we are looking at now, obviously, the wedding. Let's go straight for the wedding. So I'm just going to tick over a few months here around May. So it's the 19th of May, 2018. So by this stage, you can see that, yep, we're plugged in. That Venus is right up there on the south node. So again, the sense of fadedness and fairy tale and everything in between. Neptune is squaring tightly now the ruler of his midheaven and this what we would call the dispositor of his ascendant ruler. So Mars rules the midheaven, Saturn rules the ascendant, and in Scorpio, Mars is the ruler. So the big planet that's driving his life is now squared by Neptune. So that's, I would definitely call that a red flag, astrologically speaking, no doubt. And then there's also a few other things going on there. We can see that Pluto is, whoops, not that one. We need a straight line. Pluto's trining the sun. There's a lot going on. Of course, we've got Jupiter, sort of a very royal planet, sort of crowning the top of his chart in terms of the angle there. So there's quite a bit going on, but what I want to bring your attention now is just a relatively short time later, 18 months is all it took for Megxit. Now, Megxit is a super interesting phase for Harry because, and this all happened, I think it was about the 9th of January, 8th or 9th of January of 2020. And so you might remember that when he was in the military, he experienced his full moon phase. He's at the peak, he's at the pinnacle, bright light, bright opportunity. Our secondary progressed lunar phase throughout the course of our life highlights the rises of fortune in our life. And I'm not talking lotto, but I'm talking about the ability to access opportunity, the ability to have life like rise up to meet you, or are you pushing back on life? It's definitely going to show the ebbs and the flows of the seasons that we are in. In 2020, at the beginning of 2020, Harry was starting to really enter into that beginning of the balsamic moon phase, which is unfortunately one phase that is something that is difficult to have to explain to people because nobody really wants to feel like that the lights are going out on life. This is a guy who's born famous, essentially. He's born with lots of fortune, literally, lots of opportunity. Everywhere he turns, the road rises to meet him. Now he's in a phase of life where it feels like the walls are closing in, the access to opportunity has diminished. He's probably wanting privacy. So when they left saying they wanted privacy, well, there is a sense with the balsamic phase that it's a hermit phase, that you want to um, bunker down, you want to be alone. So I could see from Harry's point of view that um, that's probably what he did want at that point of time. And then when the balsamic moon comes through, and we all get to experience that, it can really feel like the world is falling away from you. This was the beginning of essentially Harry losing every single thing he knew in his life. Not only did the whole Megxit situation, he lost his family, he lost his stature in the royal family, he lost his country, he lost his career, um, and he moved to a foreign place. So that is definitely a sense of hermit-like living, feeling alone, feeling lost, feeling discombobulated, and all of those sorts of things. So, a very challenging situation. Now, you might remember that Venus in the 10th house is still going to speak to the idea of public reputation and things of that in his chart being in the 10th house. This has also recently, Venus has recently progressed into the 12th house, into Sagittarius. This is saying, hey, I don't want to be so public anymore. I don't want to be in the eye. Well, that's what they said back then. I mean, whatever has eventuated sits well, but that was the story at the time. And the astrology, we can kind of go, yeah, well, maybe that was what he wanted, um, at heart. And then also too, that secondary progressed Mars has come for his ascendant. This is actually a really, really potent situation. So instead of him rising up to the career before, the career is coming to him. And so I can imagine that he was thinking, hey, yeah, we can make it in this new place. We can make it in Hollywood. We can sort of do all of the things there. So I can completely understand how he was thinking given this phase. So, obviously, things for the most part of Harry's life since making these moves, and let's not forget the transit that will go down in history, Saturn Pluto conjunction. in his first house, forever changing who he is, his identity, and how he's known, but also trining his sun. So that's a really big turning point for Harry. So not only has he got all of that, he's also got Neptune squaring Mars. It's trining the midheaven. He really, I don't think, knew what he was doing. That fog and that confusion, probably maybe a slightly reactive decision, or perhaps a decision kind of instigated and added to by his wife and some of his past traumas. Let's be honest about that. Given his mum and everything that evolved around that, his childhood, his military service. I mean, no one comes back the same. So there's traumas around that. So we can also see that the ruler of the midheaven is in the 12th. So the military, the stress, the post-traumatic stress, but he was doing so well with that, with the Invictus Games. And so he used his stature, his position in the world to create this event that helped uh, former servicemen and women to be sporty, be active, and compete and do all of those things. Charities with his brother and his sister-in-law. So there was many ways that that was um, you know, so functioning really well for him. Then also too with that, we've also got the ruler of the 12th house, which is that mental anguish or that stress or the trauma that he suffered is also in the first house. So you'd have to ask yourself, to what extent has he been an agent in his own sort of dramas or in his own stress or in his own situation. So obviously there's some external, like very real external situations, but then also too, one might wonder, to what extent has he been his own worst enemy or his own agent of undoing with the ruler of the 12th in the first house? I would most definitely say a combination of both. So, let us fast forward somewhat to the present moment and look forward slightly. So, if we go around to about now, so what are we, November of 2025? So, you can see now with the secondary progressed lunar phase is that the sun is now in Scorpio, and then the moon is in the very early degrees of Sagittarius. So 31 degrees. So by this stage, if you were just to look at the sky when the moon and the sun, when the moon's new, about 31 degrees away from the sun, you would start to see that first sliver of light in the moon every month. And that's the first light after the moon has had her rest or her period of darkness. And so that return of light is something we see every month. This return of light via secondary progression is something that we only see every 27 years. Um, so this is quite a significant event for Harry, and this is something I absolutely love to see when I'm seeing clients is the it's still in the new phase, so he's still navigating, he's still everything's new. It's a fresh slate. It's as though you've moved house, you've moved country, he's done all of that, but you're still trying to find your way through the dark. But the key difference here is he's no longer on the waning, losing cycle. He's now on the waxing and the gaining cycle. So eventually, this over the course of this period of time, the light is only going to increase and get bigger. And when someone's light is increasing and getting bigger, they're able to see the path forward. They're able to make the decisions that they couldn't make. They can start to see the reason or the method in the madness of why they had to go through that winter of proverbial darkness whatever they were working on in the background may start to show signs of bearing fruit in this phase. So it is this phase of emergence. There's this a phase of building and momentum and generating. So it's a very, very exciting phase for someone to move into and through. It's still in the 12th house and it's still going to be there for a little while yet, a couple of years, give or take. So the overall issue here with Harry is that he is going to start to have more light, more clarity, more sense of his own direction. And I suspect that will probably happen once two things in about 18 months, that secondary progressed Venus is going to hit Uranus. And this is often a symbol of wanting something different, wanting something else. And whatever that looks like for the individual, it can be a period of time where relationships, values, your sense of just relating in general, it shakes. It's different. You're wanting different things than what you might have wanted 1 year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. So that's something to watch for Harry. And as this happens, the moon is only going to gain more light in the secondary progressions. So he's going to get some kind of shock, whether he's the instigator of the shock, whether he is the recipient of the shock. There's going to be some type of change, something different, something new in the way that he is either seen publicly from the public sort of viewpoint, or it will come from an external place where he makes those changes and therefore it prompts that external public eye changing on him. Now, there's many other things to note, but essentially what's happening is a lot of timing tools are kind of all coalescing and coagulating around a similar time frame. He's also got, so as I said, we've probably got about 2 years of that secondary progressed moon, and we've probably got about two-ish years of that secondary progressed midheaven coming into Capricorn. So Harry, in from my perspective and from looking at the astrology, is going to be a very different guy. I think he's going to have some kind of awakening, some kind of realization, some kind of dawning that what was I doing for the last 5, maybe 7 years of my life? That kind of great awakening. So there's so many other astrological insights here, but obviously just trying to keep it as much as possible to the highlight reel. Now, if you have seen the video I did on Megan, I also talked about a lot of things happening for her in around the 18-month to 2 year period. So it's really interesting to me that this time frame is very active for the both of them. How this looks, I haven't astrologically analyzed myself. Maybe next time we can do some synastry between between the two. Look at the composite charts or composite. If you're American, I think you say it composite. We say composite, whatever, potato, potato. We could look at that and sort of break down a few ideas around what that might be. I have a few ideas personally, but for the intents and purposes of this, try and keep it to the astrology as much as possible. But all that being said, I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts in the comment section below. If this kind of astrology really interests you and you'd love to learn how to do it, year one, my beginner's astrology starts December 10. I'll put a link below that'll take you directly to the app where you can see some of the offerings inside the contemporary astrology program, where you can learn how to read charts. I'm actually finishing up my year one for 2025, and they've only been studying with me, I think, since about February. And already I can put a celebrity chart in front of them. We analyze it, we look at it, and they're able to guess who it is, which I always find incredible. Just how much you can do with astrology in a relatively short period of time. And we just build on that and build on that. So all of the links below will be there if you want to check it out. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Share it with an astrology friend, and I really look forward to seeing you in my next update. Bye for now.